to an autoimmune moment with Stephanie Yeager. Today I want to talk about autoimmune diseases, but first a disclaimer. I am not a healthcare practitioner. This is just based on my own limited research for myself. So you should think of this as a framework for autoimmunity, but not an actual scientific explanation. And as always, do your own research. So first of all, the immune system. 3 things about the immune system. Number 1, it is good. It is good. We need the immune system. It protects us from diseases. Number 2, it works by detecting something that is foreign in the body that it's interpreting as being harmful. And number 3, when it interprets something harmful in the system, it enacts these immune responses or processes in an attempt to address it. One of them being inflammation. And inflammation is basically the blood vessels leaking out into the tissues to cause swelling in an attempt to isolate the harmful thing. Boom! Drop the mic and walk away. Just joking. I'm sure that there are better explanations out there of the immune system. But notice how I did say when the immune system interprets something as harmful, it enacts immune responses to address it. So that means the immune system could be interpreting something as harmful that isn't necessarily harmful. For instance, cat dander, tree pollen, peanuts. Okay, so autoimmunity. What the heck does autoimmune mean? Well, auto means self. So autoimmune means self-immune. In other words, the immune system attacking itself and sort of creating diseases of its own. What? How dare it? How dare I? If I'm attacking myself, then I better get out the battle weapons of antibiotics and immune suppressors to fight this thing, right? No. Put the battle weapons away because your immune system is not attacking itself for no reason or at random. So what we want to do instead is to figure out what the underlying cause of the chronic inflammation that is at the root of your autoimmune disease is. Okay, so let me say it again. What is the underlying cause of the chronic inflammation that is at the root of your autoimmune disease? What might some of those things be? There's a number of possibilities. I want to today just give you 2 of them. So, number 1, leaky gut. Leaky gut, or intestinal permeability. So basically, the intestines have, a lining, and it's allowing certain particles to pass out of it into the system. And that's fine when it functions properly, but the problem with leaky gut or intestinal permeability is that those gaps in the intestinal wall have opened because of damage. Now there's sort of bigger holes. And so the intestines are allowing particles to pass through it that are not supposed to pass through it. They should be staying inside of the gut. But now they're sort of freely floating in your system. So, 3 things on that. Number 1, how did it get that way? Number 2, why does it matter? And number 3, what can I do about it? So, number 1, how did it get that way? Well, certain things that we eat contain these certain proteins that are usually found in higher quantities in gluten and other grains, also found in dairy and sugars, and a whole handful of other things that we tend to eat that are popular to eat. And these proteins that are inside of these foods, when we eat them, cause damage to the lining of the gut. Number 2, why does that matter? It matters because when particles are passing through the gut lining into the bloodstream and are allowed to sort of freely float around, the immune system is able to detect, hey, there's something that's not supposed to be here, something's wrong. And it enacts its immune response in order to destroy it, inflammation being one of them. But the problem is, take the example of Candida. The immune system cannot recognize Candida. It can't find it. So, Candida, which is a yeast-like fungus, if it's, it's in your system, and if it passes outside of the intestinal wall into your bloodstream where it's not supposed to be, the immune system recognizes, hey, there's something harmful here, there's something wrong here, and it enacts inflammation. But because Candida has receptors on it that look to the immune system like healthy tissues or regular body organs, the immune system can't find it. So then you get this chronic inflammation, but the inability of the immune system to do anything about what it's inflamed for. Okay, so number 3, what do you do about it? Heal the gut. You have to heal the gut. So 4 things on heal the gut. Number 1, eliminate the problematic foods that are doing damage to your gut. So how do you do that? An elimination diet, if you don't know what that is, look it up. Another possibility, autoimmune protocol diet. If you don't know what that is, also look that up. Do make sure that you do these dietary changes under the direction of a functional and integrative medicine practitioner. Number 2, how do you heal the gut? Consider taking a trusted probiotic. Again, under the care of a functional and integrative medicine practitioner. Number 3, eat gut healing foods. So things like bone broth and leafy greens. You can do more research on what other foods are healing for the gut. And that leads me to my number 4, which is do your own research. So look it up. What is leaky gut? How is it contributing to my autoimmune disease? How can I heal it? Find out who are the integrative and functional medicine practitioners in your area. Do your own research. Okay, so we were talking about what is the underlying cause of the chronic inflammation that is at the root of your autoimmune disease. We talked about one of the possibilities, leaky gut. Number 2 possibility that I'm going to talk about is chemical intolerances. So did you know that since 1900, 80,000 man-made chemicals have been introduced? Now, just because a chemical is man-made, or synthetic is another word for that, doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. But I'm thinking that our systems were not meant to handle 80,000 new man-made chemicals since 1900. Okay, but a couple of things we need to get straight before we move on. Number 1, just because something is a natural chemical, meaning that it's occurring in nature, does not mean that it is good for you. So take, for example, lead and mercury. You would not want to be ingesting those or inhaling them or rubbing them all over your skin. Okay, so just because something occurs naturally does not mean that it's good for you. The second thing that we need to get straight is everything is a chemical. Everything. So Google search for the terms kiwi fruit chemical compounds or the chemical compounds in kiwi fruit. And when you see that, it's just this long list of the chemical compounds that make up a kiwi. And things that like you've never heard of and can't pronounce. So hey, everything is a chemical. So now that we got those 2 things straight, instead of using the word chemical for the rest of the discussion, let's instead use the word toxin. Okay, so now that we've got that straight, I want you to imagine, again, more of a framework, not necessarily a scientific explanation. I want you to imagine that you have a toxin tolerance tank. So you have the ability to tolerate toxins because you have a toxin tolerance tank. ITTT. Okay, so over time, because you've been exposed to toxins and maybe because of your genetics and because of how much stress you're under and how the body interprets your levels of stress, you deplete your TTT. So now that you've completely depleted your toxin tolerance tank, when your system is exposed to toxins, those toxins bind to your healthy tissues, and the immune system tags it for destruction. Tags what for destruction? Your tissues. I mean, yes, the toxin that has bound itself to the tissues, but the tissues. Okay, so what do we do about it? 3 things that are very interrelated. What do we do about it? Number 1, eliminate the toxins that are in your everyday routine. Number 2, keep in mind that you can only control what you can control. So, you cannot control the amount of pollutants that are coming in and out of your atmosphere where you live. You cannot control the amount of radiation that's bouncing off the walls in your home and in your office. So don't be concerned or worry about the things you can't control. Just be concerned with the things that you can control. And number 3, very related, replace your household and toiletry products that are filled with toxins with more natural, less toxic products. This is very expensive. I understand that. If you look at my timeline on my website, you will see that I did this in sort of a process. It wasn't, I didn't replace all of them all at once. Kind of through time, I replaced those household items. So, take your time, replace them one at a time until you have all of them replaced and you're using all natural products for almost everything that you do in your regular routine. So it is expensive, but what I want you to keep in mind is this. If you can naturally get your condition under control, you will literally be saving yourself thousands of dollars now and down the line in medical bills, doctor's visits, prescription medications. So it's worth it. It's worth it. All right, thanks for joining me. This has been an autoimmune moment with Stephanie Yeager.